Good morning again. This is Rachel back with Infused Meadows. So I've done a video on candied peppers, okay? And I got to thinking about it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a part 2 because there could be people out there, they're like, okay, well, she did explain it. But then it was a rush because I think the video hit 22 minutes. And I don't know, supposedly people only like quick videos. And I will say, like I've said in all my other videos, I can do quick and you're not going to learn anything. So the whole point in the things that I want to do is to teach others to be able to do exactly like I'm doing, except for, you know, you don't have to follow every single recipe. You can chase down other recipes because you may say, well, I like the way that this person does it, but I don't really care for that recipe. So what can you do? Go onto that beautiful World Wide Web and find the recipe out there that's right for you. This one in particular is candied jalapenos. I love it. My husband not so much, but that's fine. That's the beauty of life. We're all different, right? So into this pot, I have 2 cups. It's a 2-2-2. 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. 2 cups of packed brown sugar. 2 cups of white sugar or granulated sugar. I then have 1 teaspoon of turmeric, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of my own home mixed dehydrated peppers. Now you can use Aleppo peppers, you can use jalapeno pepper powder, which I think you can buy online. Just go look. I'm pretty sure you can, but like I said, go look. You can use really any kind of pepper powder you want. Just make sure it's a teaspoon of it, okay? You're going to stir this not until it's all nice and combined. Now, just like most other things, I wouldn't walk away because you know, this can get out of hand fairly quickly. So just stir it. It's going to come up to that boil that you can't knock down. And that's when we know to set our 5-minute timer, okay? So you see what I got going. You'll see the color. See that? So it's not the prettiest, but in the last video, I showed you what the jar looked like. Hope that didn't make anybody a little nauseous. I showed you what the jar looked like whenever it was done. And this way, you know, for those that choose to watch it, this will be like a part 2 and I'll label the other one as part 1. That way, if you're like, well, I want to see a little bit more of how to, that's what this video will be for, okay? All right, I'm going to keep doing this and we'll be back. As you can see, my roaring boil started, and then I've turned my heat down so that it's to a simmer. And this is, you know, one of those things. This is what happens with this particular recipe, and a lot like this. They foam up. So you got to be ready to keep this stirred to knock down. Also, you know, use this size pot or bigger for this recipe so that way you don't have a mess everywhere. Okay, I'm going to continue. My timer is set. I am on a lower temperature. It's just, you know, once the foam starts, it's what you want, but it's a pain in the butt. All right, we'll be back 5 minutes. I'm going to add my peppers in, okay? All right, my alarm just went off. I'm adding those jalapeno peppers that I showed you in the last video. Carefully. Remember, this is a lot of sugar. It will be very, very hot. I like some of the seeds in mine. You don't have to, like I said in the last video. But I do. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my heat back up to a medium high. And I need this to come back to a roaring boil. And I'm going to keep stirring. Okay. And we're going to, once it starts to boil, I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. At that point, I'm going to pull these out. And I'm going to have my jars out onto my cloth over here, or onto my cutting board that has a towel on it. And I'm only pulling out the peppers. Once I pull out the peppers, I will have another timer set for 7 minutes, and I'm going to continue to let this cook for 7 minutes at that roaring boil, okay? And you'll stir the whole time. So I will try to bring you back when I can, as I can, but I wanted you to see where we're at right now, okay? So I need it to boil, and then I will set that 5-minute timer. We'll be back. One other note that I want to make is what I said in the last video. So technically you want 20 large bell peppers for this. And I showed you I had roughly 15 from my plants. I could have picked some green just to throw in there, but the red is where the heat's at, and that's what I like. But if you don't have at least 15, then take and divide this recipe in half, and then that way, you know, you only need 10 peppers. But, you know, if you learned in math, once you hit that 5, go ahead and go up, whereas if you're below 5, you round to the nearest one below. So if you only have 11, 12 peppers, don't try to do the recipe for 20. Go ahead and do it half the recipe and go for 10. You got 15 peppers, 17 peppers, go ahead and make it for the full 20 peppers that, you know, are needed for this full recipe. I hope that makes sense. If you're a kitchen person, then there's a lot of math. I'm sure you know this. All right. So I'm going to keep doing this. We're not quite out of boil yet, but it is starting to bubble, so we're getting there. Like I said, roaring boil, stirring, it doesn't go down, start your timer, okay? We'll be back. Roaring boil has started. I'm sure you can see that. My timer's going 5 minutes, okay? So I'm going to stir this for 5 minutes. At the end of the 5 minutes, I may not unpause. Or, yeah, because I'm going to pause here in a second. At the end of that 5 minutes, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to pull those peppers out and put those into my jars, okay? And then I will keep this at its boil for another 7 minutes, okay? Alright, we'll be back. So because my timer is going for that bowl, I have 3.5 minutes left. I'm going ahead and getting my jars out and ready to go, okay? So you would want to do the exact same thing if you're making this. Alright, okay, I know you can't see much. This is my steam canner. I've got it on low with water. I've got my ladle ready so that as soon as this timer goes off, I've got 5.5 minutes. I will be taking the liquid and putting it into these jars. As you can see, I've already pulled my jalapenos out, and that's its 7-minute timer with 4.5 now left on it, okay? So as soon as that's done, that will get poured into these jars. This is going, and it will heat up. This will move, and then I will put the jars in there as soon as I'm ready. Excuse me. As soon as I'm ready, the jars will go in, and then I will close this lid, and once it gets up to right between those two black lines you saw at the top, I will set a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, and I'll also have a nice steady stream of steam coming out that hole, which will face towards the back because nobody wants to get burned. Okay? Alright, I will try to come back, but I can't promise it'll be when everything's going because that's a little harder to do. Okay? But I'm trying to keep you informed. Alright, I'll be back. I'm tongue-tied. It's Monday. Okay, here's where we're at. I'm sorry, I tilt from the left end, so that's why I didn't bring you along for that. I have 2 pints and a little half one. Because I don't have a half pint jar, I'm not going to worry about canning that one, so I'm only going to can these 2. There's my vinegar. Okay, we talked about that. Yeah. You're right. Now let me tell you, if you like sweet, spicy-ish, you'll love this. But make sure you don't splatter any across your forehead, because I'm going to tell you right now, your brain will be beaten out by your tongue trying to get to all of it. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. I am going to put my lid on this. This will seal on its own because I'm going to leave it out here rather than... Alright. You saw that? Half turn. What's going on? Half turn. Wait. Let me make sure. Yeah. Going on. Alright. What I'm going to do now, put this lid like so, and then once this gets up to where I need it to, you'll see a lot of, well, wait. Alright, always want that steam hole that way. You want it away from you. So, could I can this? Yes. Most people don't, because that is an awful lot of headspace and we risk the neck of our jar. And so what I'm going to do is I didn't crank it down. I gave it a full turn. I'm going to leave it here. You can, I got a little pepper seed right there that decided to jump out during the pouring process. Now this is still like a candy, okay? So what does that mean? That means that this is very sticky. So as soon as your pot is done and you're ready, definitely get that in the sink, get hot water in it so that it cleans up easier. This, I'm going to do exactly like I told you earlier. I'm just going to drape my towel across it. This will seal, but once it seals and it's cool, which will be roughly tomorrow, this one's going to go in my refrigerator and I'll use it this week. But I'm telling y'all, it is good stuff. If you're eating and it splatters on your forehead, your tongue will beat your brains out trying to get it all off. Alright? I'm just saying. I love this stuff. By the way, if you can't tell, absolutely love it. So I was really happy that my jalapeno plants had some peppers left, just enough so that I was like, yeah, I'm going to make me some more of this up. It is usually 2 pints or 1 quart, so you get a little bit of extra liquid left. So, you could can that up in a half-pint jar, and that would be fine. But with this much headspace, I personally will not can that. I'll just, like I said, it'll go right here. It will seal, and then I will put that in my refrigerator. It's fine in there. It'll be sealed, so it should be fine for several weeks. But I don't like to let it set that long because it is just too good, okay? All right. I'm waiting for this to come up. And then what I'll do is I'll show you where that green line's at. Let's see if I can do this without making anybody nauseous here. Alright, so the red line, if you can see it, is up here. I need it here. And what I'm looking at is if you ever get yourself a steamer, you'll notice that it kind of pegs out. Those of you car people will know what I'm talking about. You'll peg out, and then you'll have a nice steady stream of steam. At that point, that's when you make your line. Okay? And then what I do is, that's my first line. And so if it raises just that little bit more, I'll go ahead and make my second line so that I'm looking for my that red line to be in between those, but in this green area, okay? And that tells me that I'm at the full amount of pressure that is needed for canning. And this is steam canning. It's a lot faster than water bath because it's nowhere near as much water, and it gets up to temperature a lot faster. So you use less electricity or less gas if you're running off a gas stove top like I am. Alright. Just ignore the little mess. It's not really a mess, you know that. All that gets used. Salt, pepper, different salt, oils. Anywho. Alright, I'm going to start getting some things cleaned up. This usually takes about 10, maybe 11 minutes to get up to where I need it. At that point, I will hit go on that timer I just set, which is for 10 minutes. We'll be back. I don't know if you can see it, but we have a nice steady stream of steam, okay? I'm right in the middle of my 2 black lines, so I'm setting my timer. Once my timer is done, I'm going to leave these jars in here for 15 minutes after that timer goes off for the original 10. Why? Because if you open this, as soon as that goes off, you will crack your jars. Okay, there's too much of a temperature discrepancy between inside that and inside my house. Plus, I have a window open because, well, my window's starting to steam up because of all the water boiling, putting steam in the air. Anywho, so when this goes off, the 10 minutes, like I said, you want to set another timer for 15 minutes. Let that set for 15 minutes. I can't, tell you that enough, because if you pull this before that 15 minutes is up, you will break your jars and you risk them going poof. I don't want anybody to get hurt, okay? So 15 minutes after it boils for 10. All right, we'll be back. So just wanted to give you one more tip in case you wanted to steam can. If you notice your lid start to bounce, you need to turn it down. That means you have too much heat and it's not allowing it to escape at the right consistency. So you've got too much heat going on. Turn it down a little bit so that you have a steady stream and your lid is nice and just fine. Okay? You can get these on Amazon. They are a fraction of the cost in the U.S. Can't explain why. I've had this one for over 2 years. I gave triple what my mama gave. I didn't have a choice. It was the only steamer. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? I got mine off Amazon. If you have a friend in the U.S., talk to them. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? Anywho, that's the downside to having somebody that knows what's what in a whole nother country, and what shouldn't be what. Anyway, so we've got 8 minutes left on that timer. We'll be back. Okay, so my 10-minute timer's gone off. I'm turning my heat off. And I'm setting my timer for 15 minutes. And we'll be back. Okay, my timer is about to go off. So I thought I'd bring you back for this. There we go. So I have pulled this one forward. I'm going to pull it forward just a little bit more. Okay, we're going to take our lid, oh so carefully. Just lay that right there. Alright. I'm going to cover this back with my towel. I'm going to tuck that one in a little bit closer. And then what I will do is probably move this to the baking station where I made my garlic pull-apart bread. And I will let this set. Now, it should, you'll hear it. It'll make a popping sound. That's just the lid sealing, okay? So that's a good sound. That's what you want to hear. I'm not going to let this just go until you hear that, because I mean it could take up to 15 minutes. And nobody wants to just wait and listen for 15 minutes. Sometimes it doesn't take that long. Like I actually thought one may go ahead and go. Anyway, so once this is set for 1 day, like I showed you in the other video, I will test that lid. Take the ring off, test the lid, and then once it's good to go, I will put it in there on a shelf. And I do not put the rings back on. To put the rings back on, you could cause yourself to end up with a false seal. You know, like I explained in the last video, if you're not canning and you hear that sound that the lid will make, you want to go through and start checking your lids, okay? And if you have a ring on there, you may not think to check that one, and that one could be your problem. So always remove your rings when you can, and the jars are sealed. All right. I know that it's 2 videos, but hopefully this has shown you everything that you could need to know about this at least this recipe. And if I'm honest, the canning process is usually the same with everything else. The only thing that will be different is the time in which you'll be, steam canning, water bath canning, whatever the case may be. And of course, the ingredients as to what we're canning at that moment. But I'm not canning anything else. This was the only thing left in my garden. And so I thought I'd bring people along in case they wanted to know how to make this, or if they do want to make this, or if they're curious on some of the canning processes. And hopefully this has explained a lot. All right. As I always say, I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I hope that I've explained everything to the point to where it doesn't look so intimidating. Because I know a lot of people don't can because, well, they're afraid of it. They don't know anything. Nobody really explains things in detail. And it leaves you extremely intimidated to the point where you don't want to try something yourself. So I hope that this encourages you to grab yourself a canning book, or, if you know somebody that cans, then I hope that, you go to them and say, hey, I really want to learn. Okay. I'll do more videos next year as the garden is growing, and I actually do things like pickles and pickled peppers, and there's all kinds of things. I may actually end up doing some apple cider and applesauce soon. So if I do, I will definitely record that. But anyway, I hope that you do give this a try, and I hope that you love the recipe. I really do. And if not, I hope you find that recipe that's out there right for you. And as always, have a wonderful day.